Let me introduce Cos to you. Cosimo Chiera trained as a mathematician at RMIT University, and he's currently one of the co-founders of Natural Intelligence. His current interests include data analytics, big data, AI, and behavioural modelling, and he investigates the role of virtue for enhancing strategic communication and organisational ethics. And he's going to be talking to us today on the topic of God versus the algorithm. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Thanks, Cos.
Good morning, everyone, and apologies for the very presumptuous title for this. Oh, it is. I feel we should have the background from Rumble in the Jungle running right now, or something Ali-esque. Myself, I'm lifesaver mathematician. Lifesaver, actually, I'm at Frankston Life Saving, so yeah, if you're really worried, don't turn up. I educator. I do a gig at Eastern. I also work at Chisholm as my primary. I'm a husband to the lovely lady in the white and black, and father to two tenacious teen daughters who keep me very honest and make sure I'm well aware of social media. Tom sends his apologies. Tom is, as you can see, he's a researcher like myself, PhD. He's into mental health. He provides the grounding for a lot of what I do. He's a mental health practitioner, so if you do need help, he's at Crossways. He's also an educator, also at Eastern, which is actually where we met, and it's moved on. So obviously the machine's giving me the get going. So what is the algorithm? What is this thing we're actually talking about? So the algorithm is a piece of software, and it's designed in a very specific way. What it does three things primarily. Firstly, it's a feedback loop. The idea of this is to provide you with things. And I use the analogy of it's like your grandmother who brings you cookies and treats and things to keep you happy. And it does so regardless of whether it's good or bad for you. It does it to please you. And this is not healthy. As anyone knows, who's got grandkids, we always feed them up, send them back to the children. Here you are, parents. We've just given them, red cordial, 3 donuts, a cookie, another cookie, and then some lollies. But here it is, the child's going, great stuff. Secondly, it's a filter. Now, the current sum of, I use the word liberally, knowledge in social media. For example, Meta has somewhere between 300 and 500 petabytes of data. That is an enormous amount of information. That is more than anyone could possibly read. So how do we find anything in it? The filter's job is to go off and find things that you would like, that you would be interested in. And therein, again, this is a blind process, but it's a very dangerous process. We don't always like things that are good for us. How many people smoke? How many people use drugs? How many people drink to excess? Just because it makes you feel good, it's not necessarily good for you, as my wife will attest to with me and desserts. Lastly, it's a profiling tool, and this is one of the great dangers. The machine gets to know you. The algorithm is designed to work out multiple factors that actually, who are you? What do you do? What is actually happening? Why do you do the things you do? And we've seen this, and we've suspected much of what I'm about to talk about, but this year, something great happened. We actually found out the truth, that what we suspected was true. Now, I come at this from a cryptography point of view. Working in cryptography, there are things that happen that you see that you go, that's not as secure as it should be. And you start to form opinions about it. So good old Elon Musk bought Twitter. And what did he discover? Well, he discovered all of this stuff. He's still fighting, apparently, with the techs and programmers to get a handle on just how bad this is. That's why most of it hasn't been published. What has been published is horrific. Multi-factor profiling, it knows you. Filtering data, you get a biased point of view. It's a reflection of your own biases. Why is that a bad thing? We only have to look at what happened with Google when they took their AI and they gave it access to the internet and said, give us a reflection of humanity. And it became the most racist, horrible machine. It made Skynet look like a positive saint. Is the internet a good reflection of humanity? I would argue it is a very bad reflection of us. It is our excesses, our limitations and our bigotry given form and then magnified instead of what it was originally meant to be, which was supposed to be the repository of all that was good and great about us. It's also a great source of cat posters and spam. So really unhealthy. So why use it? Why create this? And Duco made a great point about why can't we create a social media that actually supports us, helps us, makes us better? Well, the reason is when we started, it did. At its peak, we had multiple users. We had 6 Degrees, we had Netlog, we had MySpace, good old MySpace, which is now extinct, a joke in the community. None of them went anywhere. So we moved on, and there it is. We needed stickiness. That was what was needed to make social media work. And sadly, good old Zuckerberg found it. And we have a look at the difference. Tumblr is the current no algorithm people. Tumblr are nice people. It's pretty much a free-for-all. Has roughly 556 million blogs, and it makes about 75 to 100 million per annum. Good money? Well, it's nothing compared to good old Meta, formerly Facebook, which currently produces $117.9 billion. So if anyone's going to argue that we're going to create an ethical, loving, warm, cuddly social media, I'm sorry, it's not going to happen. We are looking at big dollars, and that's the reason for it. Then they discovered something else. With the profiling tool, they can harvest data about us and sell it. We got the first real big inclination that in the US election for Trump. Cambridge Analytica, the scandal, targeting marginal voters. How do we target them? Well, we find them. How do you find a marginal voter? Look at their profile. There is data in there. There's going to be what they read, what they look at, all of that information. So we now know for a fact this is being done to us. We are being manipulated by a system that really has no interest in us. It's not evil. It's not bad. It's worse. It's banal. It's a grey clerk who sits there when you're having your driver's license stamped and makes you fill in all 400 questions on the form when all you actually wanted was, can I update my address? It's that banality, that pedanticness that we're dealing with. So it's not something you can really fight, not in the sense of getting angry with. And I have no idea why it is doing this. Now, as an analogy, I always use the Matrix. First one was the architect. In the line, he creates a perfect world. It's a world of art. This is what the algorithm was intended to do. It's create a place where we're all happy. It was a failure. Then we have Agent Smith. You know, the first Matrix was perfect. Nobody wanted for anything. It was a disaster. And lastly, the Oracle. You're not the one. You will face hardship. You will face trial. You will face the things that you need in order to grow. And that is the great tragedy of the algorithm. It robs us of what we need to grow. It takes away the things that make us better than what we are. It feeds us false narratives. I have the right to be happy. I don't have the right to be happy. I have to work for it. I, sitting here waiting for the presentation, was as nervous as hell. I hate doing presentations. I do them because I like them and I'm good at them, but that initial fear gives you the adrenaline to be good at it, to be engaging, to talk to your audience. My net worth is measured by how popular I am. I was the nerdy kid at school who had maybe 3 friends. I wasn't popular. Did that make me any less or more of a person? Well, according to the algorithm, yeah, I'm very unpopular. New ideas offend me. I'm sorry, who here is a scientist? We go out and we find new ideas, don't we? We go and look for the new, and we go, wow, that's worth investigating. What a terrible thing to give up new ideas. What a terrible thing to not look into the world that we've been given as a gift and go, I'm offended by that. It's almost a blasphemy to turn our backs on what we've been given. And again, it's all done to make us feel better. No one likes to be upset. Now, the culprits in this story, as we've discovered, thanks to Elon Musk, we have the chatbot, or the follower bot as they are now being classified. These are happy little software that actually engages with us. It likes our bits and pieces. It has meaningful conversations. And as Elon Musk discovered, 33% of Twitter is up to 33%, because they're still trying to formalize it, are machines that are basically echoing back and forth. And this started with the old ELIZA program. We anthropomorphize it. We like it. It tells us what we want to hear. Yes men, that little suite of people who tell us what we are all about. It's a terrible manipulative tool because we want to hear good things. It has real civil structure implications too. Then we had blocking of content. This one just came out. It's actually this year. They have found out that, sadly, the US Department of Justice has access to both Meta and Twitter and the ability to tag content as false or not to be distributed. Now, there are some good reasons for that. We don't want people distributing, kiddie porn. We don't want them distributing drugs. What about when it comes to your opinion about whether or not to vaccinate? What about your decisions as a Christian, or as a non-Christian, or as Muslim, or as a Buddhist? What if you're unpopular in your statements? Does anyone have the right to censor that? What about if it's a book that someone doesn't like and they decide to censor it? Now, the famous example at the moment is Hunter Biden's laptop. For those of you who follow US politics, Hunter Biden's laptop was considered Russian propaganda before the US election that brought in his father. Now it's been found to be real and a cesspool of absolute corruption that is being investigated. But it was switched off as content. These are manipulations. The sad thing, the algorithm doesn't know. It's told, don't look at that, and it does blindly. It makes no moral or ethical judgments. Again, these are not things they are going to look at adding in because there's no cost benefit to the companies. So we're now in a situation, what do we do about this? How do we jump? The worst aspect of this is it produces extremism. In the context of what we're talking about here, we're going to look at religious extremism, but this applies to anything. As an example, I actually got 1,000 people to argue over what degree should your steak be cooked to. Could not think of anything more stupid. Oh, I could think of stupider things, but this one actually worked. The most stupid one is, here is a rock, have an opinion. That's a good way to start a fight on Facebook. Better on Twitter. But I had 1,000 people arguing over how a steak should be done. And it got really heated. Something that should be, well, I like my steak medium rare, end of conversation, turned into, you don't know how to cook food. So, excuse me? Food is one of the more subjective things in life. How can it be right or wrong? And yet they got very angry. Before I actually pulled it down, before it got too heated, it was getting quite nasty. And the algorithm was providing more and more people with this thing because it was exciting. I'm sitting there thinking, this is stupid. But nonetheless, so extremism is a problem. And this is what the algorithm does. By exciting us, by looking for the things that will get us interested, it promotes more and more of what we will react to. And reaction is measured by, those little things at the bottom, the little, are we happy? Are we in love? All of those. Yeah, start playing with those and you discover it gets very quickly into the idea of giving you more of that information. It's not a good thing that it does. So Christian extremism typically comes in two forms. We have mass organisation, rallies. We've seen that, where it can be used, and this is a neutral thing. We can use it both positively and negatively. We can organise a rally for poverty. We can organise a rally for human rights. We can use it for terrorism. It doesn't care. That's the problem. It doesn't make a moral dimension. But these are extreme positions. If people are in the streets protesting, you only have to look at the anti-vax movement. People are angry or very emotive about something. Again, this has become a divide. They're not coming forward in a spirit of communion to seek a solution. They're now bellowing at the gates. The other side of it is to discriminate on content. And there are places in all social media now where content is heavily biased, heavily regulated, and freedom of speech is a delusion. There are people who only want to hear what they want to hear. They don't want to be challenged by contrary ideas. They don't want to be pushed to think or try or experience the new. So we also have the problem now of co-option and blending. One of the things we've noticed, we get right-wing causes. Apparently, if you're a Christian, you're right-wing. I wouldn't agree with that personally. I find Christians span the whole spectrum like everything else, but according to social media, we're all right-wing. We're all nationalists, which is code for Nazi, and we're all religious. We're all very heavily religious to the point of extremist. These are not healthy things to be associated with. I have found in my life Christians to span the whole spectrum, from people that you would love to have at your dinner table and have friends for life to people you wouldn't cross the road to throw a rock at. Just like in any other aspect of life whatsoever. People are people. We have good people, we have bad people, we have people who need healing, we have people who need redeeming, we have people who show the way. That's our blessing and our curse. Another big thing is they believe in the fall of the US or Western culture. These are another things that have been associated with religion. Now, I don't believe there's anyone in this room who's believing that our culture is going to fall over anytime soon. If there is, I'd love to have a chat with you afterwards and get your opinion. And the other one is hyper-spiritualization. We see that in almost the rejection of intellect. And again, it doesn't fit with where I'm standing and speaking now. This is ISCAST. This is built on the pillars of intellectual rigor, of questioning, of seeing the world for what it is, for finding the beauty and the spirit in what we are given. It's not about ranting hysterically, quoting out of context, focusing in on one or two passages and just chanting them like a mantra. Everybody here would have addressed and done some theology, would have read the Bible. We would have all known what we were talking about. We're not, just cherry picking data and going, this is what we mean. We're not leading the argument. Everyone here, I believe, I hope is true, bravely faces both faith and fact with an even hand. But that's what social media has become. That's the picture of social media, much like Google's artificial intelligence. That's what it's painting us as. It's what it paints people as. So here's the problem. The algorithm is amoral. Doesn't care. It just manipulates data. It's the clerk. So we need to look at how do we address it. Now, ideally, we'd like to rewrite it. That's not going to happen. So we have to look at how do we do with this. We learn to be critical on social media. And not critical as in judgmental, but take a critique of it. How real is this? How true is this statement? How many people know that you can find pictures of Jesus on toast? Photoshop's a great thing. You know, you see them floating around the internet. I've also seen Robin Williams on toast, Donald Trump on toast. Photoshop is the great producer of strange things. So we be critical. We look at it. Is it real? Did the person do any research? How many people have seen stuff from Google University? Euphemism for I looked it up on YouTube or Google, and it suits what I want to hear, so therefore it must be true. We have to be careful of that. There's plenty of people who'll tell you what you want to hear, and they're usually selling something. We need to teach our young people to be discerning. We need to teach them to discriminate between what is real and what is filtered, what has been manipulated, what has been changed. Fortunately, a lot of them now are becoming quite discerning. My daughter can tell when someone's used a filter on their profile pictures, for which I'm grateful, because it means that those handsome-looking guys, she looks at and goes, no, that's not real. And I look at it and go, how do you know? And she points to the spots where you can see it's been filtered and enhanced and bits have been changed. So there is hope. There is hope for our young people. They are discerning. And we need to compartmentalise our realities. This is real. This is what we are dealing with, what we can touch, what we can see, what we can experience, what we can feel in the depths of ourselves. I'm wearing a t-shirt which has our first great toy that we invented as computer people. Who's old enough to remember it? Good old arcades. Well, that's all this is. This is an artificial reality. It's not real. It's a toy that we've invented to amuse ourselves. And Dora put it brilliantly, it does distract us from our thinking. It's an amusement. It's not real. And yet people treat it as real. They treat it as though this is such an important part of their lives, they will kill for it. Nothing more tragic than killing for a toy. And we've got to start educating people as part of normal education in IT, the difference. You know, it's great to look at the transhumanist stuff, and I will admit I love sci-fi. Virtual worlds, artificial worlds, all of that is great. But at the end of the day, they are toys and distractions from the real. We also need to look at government regulation. These companies, the social media companies, are treated as common carriers, and yet they're editorializing, which breaks the rules. So we need naming of content to be blocked, to be properly categorized. It can't just be, I've decided I'm offended, I'm going to block that content, and if enough of people are like me, that it's going to be blocked in general. The woke culture or cancel culture mentality of if enough of us whinge about it, it'll stop. We've got to stop that silliness. There is content that has to be managed. We don't need explosives formulas being posted on the internet. We don't need recipes for making weapons to be posted on the internet. Good Lord, in current days of printing, you know, where we can now print 3D objects, the last thing I need is for someone to be able to go and grab the designs for a ghost gun, print it up and go on a shooting spree. So some stuff validly has to be managed, but not everything. Things that should be free for discourse have to be named as such. We have to get into that habit. We have to provide proper legislative mechanisms for this to be managed, for this to be dealt with. How do we block websites? How do we manage them rather than knee-jerk reactions? And also to actually make it effective. When they blocked pirate websites, there was a competition. How long would it take you to bypass the rules and regs? You know what the standing record is? 38 seconds. That's how effective it was. Admittedly, it took me 2.5 minutes, but I stopped for a cup of coffee. They were a joke. So we need effective legislation. We need to update the current laws on what is this that we're dealing with. It's overseas, it's international. How do we manage it? You can put in a complaint about Facebook. It's run out of California, it's under US laws. Australian government can say whatever it likes. It really has no real power. We need to prosecute the companies. If they're going to editorialise, they need to be treated like editors, like any other editorial company. If they're going to allow people to document drop, if they're going to allow people to harass each other, then they are inciting to riot. They're inciting to crime, and they need to be treated accordingly. It's the only way that will actually curtail the behaviour. And we need to have a reporting framework the same as in cybersecurity. The other field I work in, cybersecurity, if something goes wrong, people have to report it. It can't be just left to be buried. How many people are suiciding because of social media? I don't know. It's not reportable. How many people are engaged in illegal activities through social media? Nobody knows because it's not reportable. How many people are suffering systemic bullying in social media? Nobody knows because it's not reported. We can get some ad hoc stuff, but that's about it. Direct action for ourselves, cut down quickly. We need to learn to doubt what we see on social media. We need to diversify, go out and meet other people, experience other ideas, embrace the new. Learn to disrupt. Quickest way to disrupt the algorithm is go and watch multiple things. Go and do things that are a counterpoint. Go and watch left-wing and right-wing shows. Go and look for content that contradicts it. The algorithm is not smart. It gets very confused very easily. I know, I watch currently left-wing and right-wing news in the US, and the machine has no idea what to do with me half the time. And learn to disconnect the most important one. This is the real. Step away from the screen, put the keyboard away, go out and do something, and put your mobile phone away. And I'm as guilty as anybody else of that. So, in summation, let's jump to that. It's not going to sit there. In summation, I hate technology. Seriously, in summary, be skeptical. Find space for God in our lives, and that is making sure the machine is not controlling us. Engage with other members of our church, our community, even outside those. Seek out new ideas so you can find those moments of epiphany and experience. The world is created to teach us. Stop hiding from it. Stop living as little thing in the corner from V from Vendetta. Loyalty is not a tattoo. Love is not a quote. And the truth is something we should all seek. Thank you.
Thank you for that very sobering and slightly terrifying talk. We have lots of questions though.
I'm in trouble. I was
stay
going to make a run.
And do please stay, talk to the microphone, because I think online
Yes.
people would like to hear. So we have a question from Warren, which is, and it's a two-part, so I'm going to read this. Your presentation seems to be on technological determinism. However, researchers such as Heidi Campbell proposes that Christians often shape tech. Can you comment on this and perhaps on Yarbad theory of mediatization? Did I pronounce that right?
Well, firstly, all humans shape tech. That's been since the first stone implement. So what we're creating is a reflection of our intent. Beyond that, It's not strictly a Christian thing. It could apply to anybody. How we use it is also how we shape it. And no, I can't comment on Harvard's, because I haven't read any of his work. So I'll have to go and have a look at that and follow up.
To Warren.
Yeah, I'll go annoy Warren later.
Sounds good. Okay, sorry, bear with me. I've got to scroll through some other questions. Is there literally an algorithm involved in software, some sort of mindless equation, and would each software, for example, Twitter or Google, have their own? Yeah,
they all have their own. It's a class of software. All of them are slightly different in their encoding and the factors that they use, but they're basically a simple equation, which is a feedback loop. So the idea is the more response it gets to certain factors, the more weighting it attributes to them, the more data it seeks with those attributes, then brings it back to you and tests it against it. So it is a dynamic feedback loop. The underlying mathematics behind it is pretty much the same throughout.
Now, I just asked about bots. You mentioned them. I'm not excited, but I recently got a letter. I went to Secretary of a charity the other day. Got a letter saying we breached copyright some years ago on our webpage. And I saw on the internet that the company involved uses bots all through. So I'm not saying this company that chases copyright breaches is correct, but the bottom line is can bots be used in that way for good purposes? You sort of seem to frame them all as evil, and I just thought maybe they can be used like as a tool.
Originally they were. A bot was a handy little bit of software that one or two single purposes. So it was a small functional replication of something that a human could do. So like a data filter or a search engine. As we've added more functions to them, people have realised that these can be used to trick people into other behaviours. They can be used to generate content rather than just read it passively. And that's become what I consider quite evil, because it's not, again, these are mindless machines, but you've added an intent that is quite nasty. The intent usually is to manipulate somebody, to get them to act in a certain way by using a stimuli. And we know, because of the big data, what stimuli work. We know that people will respond to positive feedback. So if you've got a bot that reads your what you've put in, rephrases it slightly, and then sends it back to you, you'll go, oh, somebody likes me. And we've known this since about 1966, I believe, when the first ELIZA program came out. It used Rogerian psychology, and all it did was reorder the words, throw them back to you as a question, and people would engage with it. So that's what I mean when I say bots are evil. They've been really co-opted for the worst usage.
Great. I'm dying to ask a question, and I would love to actually have you in conversation with Vasilios, because I think it would just be amazing synergy. I guess my question is, and it's sort of a little bit similar to everybody else's, which is, so Vasilios talked about that we need to, as Christians, engage so deeply with technology and our world that we see elements of transcendence and bring that to the rest. And and your presentation just makes me feel like that's a really scary, frightening process. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, it is.
How do we find God in technology, given that we're seeped in it?
I'd have to say I don't know the answer of how we find God. I think that would be the ultimate hubris to try and prescribe that to anybody. But this is part of what we have been given as a gift of creation. We've been given the special gift of being able to create our own world, and we emulate the Creator. In that emulation, maybe, and I stress maybe, and I could be completely wrong, maybe there are the clues to the greater intent, to the greater good. We seek to create, imperfectly, we seek to create a paradise electronically. We were given the opportunity in paradise and we missed. Maybe this is the journey we have to undertake to learn all the things we got wrong. I don't know, but that would be my best guess. It is frightening, it is dangerous. I believe that those challenges are the important part of the journey, that we face the fears, that we face the dangers, we overcome them to be the better people we were intended to be. There's my 2 cents of philosophy. I've got nothing to back it up, and I apologise for that.
It's a wonderful ending to, I think, our session. Thank you so much, Cos.
No, thank you.
things up.